It's week 2 and we are back better than ever. The bass are spawning to the north and the post-spawn pattern to the south. Offshore, the kingfish, dolphin, and wahoo can be found throughout the entire coast. And this warm weather has kicked the inshore fishing into high gear. So sit back, relax, and listen to our guides report from your favorite region here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Thanks for joining us here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, bringing you your captains and guides from around this great state with the best reports in the biz. Rick, we are definitely cruising into our second week of being back on the air, and it really couldn't feel better.
It feels great. And this warm weather, we're already in the spring, which I really love. We're gonna have great fishing, and that's one of the things that I love about this show.
Absolutely, the spring has sprung. All right, well, let's say hi to our workbench captain over there, Dave Farrell. Dave, what are we talking about for rigs and techniques today?
Well, we're talking about how to target these bass that are moving off the spawn and getting into the deeper water, and that's what we're doing. We're gonna try to get out there and to find them and then catch them, you know, because they've been hiding up in the shallow water for a while now.
You can find them, but the key is catching them.
Yes, correct.
That's it.
All right, well, let's talk to Matt from the Startron Middle Fresh region. Matt, what's going on?
Oh, a lot of good fishing lately. Things have started to change up a little bit. Kind of like Dave was saying, some of these fish are getting done spawning. So I'm going to start off with Toledo Bend because it's kind of changing lately. We've had a lot of warm nights, and that's triggered a big shad movement. So these threadfin shad are thinking about spawning now, and the bass are starting to get done, or a lot of them are. And they're lining up on the buffet with these shad coming in. Swim baits, like the Bass Assassin Little Boss, are great for mimicking those shad right now. My favorite one is the Mama's 14 karat color. That gold glitter in that swim bait just really looks good in the Toledo Bend water. Now this is mostly an early morning deal, but you can still get bits throughout the day. And if the swim bait deal quits on you, a worm on the bottom is really good also. And about 2 to 10 foot, that's good all day long. Right now I'm using the rail worm in Junebug color because the water's a little bit stained, and I'm putting it on an 1/8 ounce up to a 1/4 ounce Texas rig, depending on what the wind's doing. Something about that swim and tail action of that Bass Assassin worm just really triggers the bites right now. And speaking of good bites, I've got a photo here for you of my fellow guide, Mr. Dusty Anders, with a real nice Toledo Bend bass.
Whoa.
Don't have an exact weight on that one, but probably 8 or 9 pounds, I guess.
Let's just call it big.
Big enough.
Big enough, there we go. So moving on to bass at Sam Rayburn, they're still really munching good. I'm getting a lot of good reports from Rayburn right now. Bottom baits, though, have been the ticket over there around the shallow grass. So Texas rig, crawl baits have been the deal in watermelon colors. That's pretty much been everything I've heard from everybody, including my own fishing over there. It's all about the bottom baits around that grass. Next, I'm going to move south and west. Mr. Jared Poole with Hill Country Hammer Guide Service is catching some good fish down at LBJ. And he says that they are primarily post-spawn now, but there are still a few on beds. So frogs and topwater plugs are producing throughout the day, as well as flukes and stick baits. And then on Lake Buchanan, Jared says that the fish are primarily post-spawn there also. But he's doing his damage with a Texas rig stick worm and a spinner bait in 5 to 10 foot on that lake. And I've got another photo here for you of one of Jared's clients with a real nice bass. And if you'd like to book a trip with Jared and catch some of those big bass he's always pulling in, look him up at lbjfishing.com. Now I'm going to talk about the crappie for just a minute. They're still biting good too. Bridges on Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn are a really hot ticket right now. As the crappie kind of transition to and from spawning, these bridges are great funnels and feeding places. So live minnows and jigs are both working good for catching them right now. The crappie like to hang out around those pilings and the cross members between those pilings, about 5 to 15 foot deep. And just kind of play with your depth until you get your first bite, and then try to keep your baits in that active zone because it kind of changes throughout the day and day to day. And I got another photo. I got a lot of photos this week of some nice crappie, a whole table full of them there. some guys that fished with my dad, living the dream this week, and did real well.
Man, I wish I was
Wow.
there living the dream. Man, I can only taste those with salt and pepper on them, bub, fried.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better.
Oh.
And another good tasting fish I gotta mention real quick is the Flathead Catfish. They're shallow on Toledo Bend right now, and there has been a lot of big ones caught lately. They put up such a great fight. They're big, powerful fish. People fish them a lot of different ways, but on a rod and reel is just a really fun deal. Something everybody needs to try once. They make great table fare, like I said, and live bluegill are the bait of choice for these giants. They've been hanging out in about 5 to 10 feet, so look for them in the shallows now.
Well, way to get us started on the StarTron Middle Fresh region, bub. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the Middle Fresh hotspots. Matt says that the bass are spawning and chasing shad in 2 to 10 feet of water. Swim baits, worms, and soft plastic crawfish baits are working best. And then crappie are biting around the bridges in 5 to 15 foot depths on minnows and jig. The flathead catfish are in 2 to 10 feet eating bluegills, Brie.
That's some big bass coming out of the StarTron Middle Fresh region. Woo-wee.
Yep.
All right, let's drop our lines into the Garmin Lower Coast region and stay inshore or go offshore with Captain Chad Kinney. Talk to us, Chad.
The good thing is, heck, we're doing all of it. You can go inshore, offshore, and April is great because everything transitions from here on out through September, so it's going to keep on changing, but April can be one of the top months when we see those fish start popping in there, especially for offshore. I spoke with Doug Stanford, Pirates of the Bay up there. He's always been helping me out for years up there, and got a good report out of Aransas Bay. He said it's really good on trout and reds, and also in Copano Bay, he's producing some better trout there. So it's going with the better trout. He said in Copano Bay early, he's been throwing some top waters. Start early throwing those top waters. We've been using some Mirror Lure, top water, Top Dog Junior, a surface walker. I like using Bone's my favorite color early, and then I'll move over to like a pink like that, working that later. But make sure you walk the dog, and I'm sure if you're throwing a top water, most of the guys or people are going to know how to do this. But for simplistics, just cast it out there as far as you can, or wherever you're working an edge, and just kind of twitch that bait where it's going to walk left and right. But when you get closer to you, kind of move your rod maybe to a 45 to your right or left where you're more comfortable, a little bit lower so you don't pop that bait out of the water. And of course, if you get a big blow up on a trout, let it sit for a bit or twitch it or wound it, and he'll come back and get it going. It's a really good way to spend the morning or afternoon fishing. Also, like I said, there's good action in Aransas Bay. Over there, they've been using some live shrimp and a popping cork. There's going to be more action over there and stuff like that. The fish are going to be a little bit smaller, but you'll have some mixed-in fish over there with the trout. And moving over to the redfish, like I said, they're mixed in there in that Aransas Bay area. Live shrimp's working excellent with that popping cork on those reds also. If you're trying to look at some bigger redfish in the lower coast here, Aransas, Port Mansfield, South Padre, but there's been some bigger reds when the tides and conditions are right at the jetties there. Live shrimp, popping corks working really good on those. Also, you can try some fish bites, like a crab or shrimp scented, and put that with a jig head and a little bit heavier leader, and throw that on the bottom. Main kind of thing is there when you're around those areas like that is kind of look for tidal changes. And it's the most simplistic way I think about it, whether you're looking at a buoy marker or the rock or something like that. Just kind of see when that tide goes slack, start pushing out. That's about normally when the bite's going to last the best. Once it starts really ripping, 2-3 knots and stuff like that, if you show up and it's already doing that, just wait for the movement to switch and you'll be better off. And there's also been some sheephead action around the jetties and stuff like that, also on the fish bites and live shrimp. So got a picture of a good little girl here, Savannah Hassan. She showed up a picture there, so that's a good redfish for that young lady.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's great. Thank you for sending us that picture.
Oh, yeah. Heading the offshore, like I said, offshore is good, and the waters are warming up early. And I'm seeing signs of stuff. Everything can kind of change throughout every year. But the kingfish action is earlier than normal. And so starting out with the kings like that, we saw them the other day. We were out in 60 foot of water, and they were free jumping and moving and just trashing everything we were putting at them out there. But the best bet is to troll 2-3 lines with a Mirror Lure diver. Pull these. I'll pull them at like 5 to 6 knots, maybe up to 8, but make sure you're rigging with wire. Main thing on 2 or 3 lines, you're having double and triple knockdowns, and put that third one out your middle and the other one's on the flat. These things are going to hit and scream and run a long way. So put the drag a little bit lighter, let them run, let them do that. Check your wire when you come back in. You'll get plenty of action. You can turn around the rocks or structure your fishing a lot quicker with that 2 to 3 lines also. So and if you're on anchor, and say you're snapper fishing, or you want to use some bait for the kingfish, throw out some ribbon fish out the back free line. That's always a good staple item. And works really well if you're looking for even a bigger fish. Then moving out deeper, there's even been some kings out deeper, 200-300 feet, but we're looking at the wahoo. They're still on that 200 to 400 foot range. You can head out, like Ranzel's rocks, breaks and stuff like that, any of the rigs and deeper structure. They're moving in and out of there. And you can do some high-speed trolling. You can get some heavier weighted islander lures. Those work great with that. You can even put in a diamond one that makes a heavier weighted weight lure to get it down lower. But I've been trolling a lot more around that 7 to 8 knot range and still doing really, really well because I'm staying on top of structure and working that versus trying to cover ground. And you can, when you're at 7 to 8 knots, you can rig those islanders with a ballyhoo, which in my opinion really helps up the bite and the production level. You try to do that on your high speed, you can get it washed out. So don't do that on the high speed ones. You're just going to lose your bait on that. Do the same thing on the wahoo stuff. I love throwing 3 lines out for the same principle. And you can add a mirror lure diver to the spread also, or even put it down in even a planer if you can get down deeper. And you can definitely rig this with some wire, and you'll work up a lot better. Got a picture of wahoo here with a couple of kingfish. A wahoo is about 35 pounds. It's not the best picture, but you can see the kingfish were completely legal, but they're caught in the same spot. We're out in 300 foot of water. They're both mixed in out there even deeper.
I like it. Looks good. All right, bud, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the shallow sport boats, hotspots from the lower coast region. Our Captain Chad tells us inshore, Aransas Bay to Chapino Bay are holding good numbers of trout and redfish, throw topwaters early in the morning, and then switch to a 1/4 ounce spoon. And then offshore, head offshore on the lower coast for the kingfish, and then head out deeper for wahoos, trolling R&R wahoo magnets in purple and black, Brie.
Sounds good to me. That looked like a toothy picture.
Boy, I got hungry when I saw all that.
Right?
Yeah.
Smoked dip. All right, we've got your upper fresh region guide on deck next. But first, let's take a look at what Dave Farrell is gearing up for at the workbench. You cooking us some stuff over there? We're getting hungry.
I wish I was cooking something.
Oh.
No, not cooking anything except for my brain. We're gonna be talking about trying to catch fish on swim jigs and when they're making the transition from the spawn to the big water.
The big water. We'll be right back.
Sounds like we're gonna be going.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin, join the club. Sportsman's Adventures, fishing for adventure. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats, eat, sleep, fish.
Reliability. Yamaha is known for it. And it's something boaters value, because these days, few things are built to last. When we find something that is, we hold on to friendships, traditions, outboards, because every second on the water is sacred. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters choose Yamaha for the long run, for life, because reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Proven with 19 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. And right now, through April 30th, you can buy Save Fish with rebates of up to $2,500. Versatility, control, performance, and design. Visit your local Skeeter dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com. Skeeter, it's more than a boat, it's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com. As you know, Dave, here at the workbench.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I thought it would be cool. Hope I didn't throw you a curveball.
You did, but I'll take it. I can hit a curve.
Texas is so big that when I was reading our captain's reports,
it is huge. It's
knowing
big.
that because of the moon that's coming, Johnny told me that they had some fish that were still going on the beds versus the lower coast.
Right, because Texas is so huge. Down south, it got, stayed nice and warm down there, so they got off their beds about their normal time. But up in the north, they had a really cold February, and it kind of kept them from going on bed like they normally do. Sometimes they'll start the full moon the end of February and go into March. But they didn't do much in February this year, according to Johnny. And they kind of just are going to hang back, and he thinks that the April 9th, the moon is going to be a really big moon. So,
which is right here, isn't it?
Right now.
Yeah.
So, you need to get out there and try to do some of this stuff we're going to be talking about. Well, when they're on the spawn, evidently they all have to go up into the shallower water because they all need sun. Matt made that perfectly clear to me. He said, if they're spawning, a bass is spawning, he needs sunlight. Those little eggs need sun. So they're going to be in probably the water that is at the limit of the visibility. So if the water's real dirty, they will probably only bed in 1 to 3 feet of water. And if it's clear, clean water, they can bed all the way up into 10 feet of water because the sunlight can reach down there and warm up those eggs and make things happen. So, and also when there's usually going to be around some sort of structure. They're going to try to put that bed up against a piling or against a grass bed with the back.
Or a big rock.
A big rock, anything, so that they like to have one side, that's kind of protected. That they can look the other way.
So they can back up to that. That's got their back, and then they're looking out, covering their bed.
So when you're targeting these fish on the bed, that's what you're going to be looking for. Throw to the sunny side of the pilings and that and whatnot. And right about now, the shad are really starting to go crazy, and the shad spawn all night, and then by the morning, some of them are still going at it. And they're dropping spawn on structure. So what you'll want to do is you want to start using stuff like square-billed crankbaits, bouncing around on the rocks and whatnot, trying to imitate those shad spawning.
So the shad irritate the bass?
Well, no,
or is this something that is separately going on?
No, this is separate. This is right after the bass have spawned, then pretty much the shad start to spawn. So they're starting to move off and starting to chase those shad around. And they'll get out there in big schools and they'll start blasting them, and you can catch them on top water, just like Matt said earlier. They're going to be out there chasing those shad all morning long until the sun gets up a little bit, and then the shad will go away, and then you got to start throwing Texas rigs. Here's a Texas rig right here, which that one has a weight on it. You don't even have to have a weight, to make a Texas rig. But when the weight's right on the nose, it's called a Texas rig, and that's for it to go slow, to work an area really slow. Or if you want to go a little faster, you can use a Carolina rig, which has a big weight on the front of it, and then the worm will float behind it. Correct, and you'll bounce that along the bottom, and it keeps your worm up suspended above the structure, and that's a really good way to catch them too. Now when they're spawning on this full moon in April, and so when they're in that spawn area, they're going to be way back up in the creeks and whatnot, and then way up in the shallow parts of the lake. And as that all starts to wind down, they all move out into the deeper water. And Johnny likes to use a swim bait when they're out there. A swim jig with a fluke on it. Usually he'll use a white fluke or a brim color, and put a white fluke on there and swim it around in that 25 feet of water where all the bait is hanging out. And either that or he'll use a Cinco, a big fat job is what I like those. You hook that in the middle like a wacky worm, or you can rig it Texas rig and work it at 25 feet of water as well. And as it flutters down, it gets the attention of all those bass.
Dave, what about these trocar hooks? What are you going to be using these for?
Well, I use those to make my Texas rig and my Carolina rig, and I'll use the swivel. This is a bought Carolina rig. But if you want to make your own, you just get yourself a good swivel.
Like these diamond swivels?
Like a good diamond swivel. Make sure it's got a ball bearing swivel in it so it'll spin. I don't even like this one because it's a barrel swivel. They don't spin very well. But you don't want that thing spinning back there anyway, hopefully.
Right.
And you could just build your own Carolina rig. And that, that Carolina rig allows you to cover a little bit more ground than if you were just using a plain old Texas rig and dragging it along the bottom.
And you were worried, and tell me if you had enough time. For God's sakes.
Oh, one thing I wanted to say was Johnny said about the colors. He says the only thing that matters in colors is if your buddy has a color that you don't have and he's kicking your butt. That's the only thing you have, which I thought was funny.
What do you think,
Dave was
Brie?
worried about, he's got the gift of gab over there. You never have anything to worry about,
Yeah,
Dave.
man.
All right, we have Johnny Geis on the line from the Upper Fresh region, fishing on Lake Fork and Welsh, where the spawn is on. Here's Johnny.
Hello, Rick and Bree.
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, we're in our busy season here. The spawn's going on right now, and the fish are biting. First up on our report tonight, we're going to talk about the big old bass on Lake Fork. They're in all phases of the spawn. That first spawning phase already happened, but we'll have a new wave of bedding bass on the April full moon. That's about April 9th. The bass are spawned in the upper end lake arms and the back end of the creeks, and they're garden fry at this time, hitting frogs. They're hitting top waters and some weightless plastics. We've got some real good frog water in all major creek areas this year. The Running Creek, the Coffee Creek, and the Oil Well Bay areas. They have some hydrilla and plenty of alligator weeds, and this is where the frog action is at this time. We're casting the frogs and the swim jigs as far as back as possible and working it through that flooded water behind the weed line. It's getting bit that way. Color of the lures is not as much as a factor as the presence of bait or watching for that newly hatched fry. Look for the movement of the minnows, the shad, the bluegill, and watch for any wakes caused by those bass guarding the fry. So good topwater baits, your walking dog type topwater baits, and poppers, they're starting to work pretty good as well. And the big bass bite, if you want to catch a big one, put on a big old large black buzz bait and cover a lot of water back there and you'll catch a good one. The bass are still on the beds and spawning on the mid to lower end of the lakes here at Fork. And as you know, Fork's such a popular destination for anglers who love to sight fish. If you can find some clear water where you'll be able to see the bass on their nest, you can catch them that way. Some anglers on Fork, they even have step ladders on the boats, platforms, so they get an elevated view of the spawning bass. So once you locate a good fish on a nest, it's wise to assess just how catchable that bass is just by how it's acting. By this, I mean you learn to target those bass that are locked on the beds or staying very tight to the nest. If that bass is spooky and keeps leaving the beds, it may take way too long to catch that one. It's best to move on along for the next one. I personally like to fish parallel to those good spawning areas and not fish for the sight fish, but usually catch the larger bass. They spawn a little bit deeper and may not be visible. Many bass, they still not spawn, so look for those staging points where you may find some good post-spawn as well as fat pre-spawn bass feeding early. Windy points are best, and if you find bass hitting the surface, you'll catch some big ones on top waters and swim baits at this time of year. Lake Fork's about in great shape as it can be in this time of year, and looks like we're going to have a real good spawn. I expect the shallow water bite to hold up for another month, and you can find the spawning bass all the way into mid-May here at Fork. I'm using my Garmin Live Scope and that new perspective view to target groups of bass on the main lake points. So here's a couple of pictures of some of the healthy spawning bass recently caught on Lake Fork. Look at the bellies on these girls.
Dude, those are some serious bass.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some more serious bass. That's over at Lake Welsh, about an hour from here. Man, that's a place to be if you want to catch a lot of bass from 2 to 4 pounds. Maybe not as many big ones as on Fork, but it has got a population. This small lake in East Texas catches tremendous pressure in the fall and winter, but it's getting a little more traffic now than usual this spring just due to such a good bite. It's a hot water coal-powered power plant. It's not been generating a lot the last few months, so the water temp's been a little cooler than normal, and this spawn over there has lasted a lot longer than usual. Well, it's a great place to learn a specific technique or practice your favorite rigging method. The drop shot and the wacky worm riggings are probably the most popular on Welsh. The lake's full of healthy hydrilla and stumps and timbers, a lot of good covers. Dropping through that hydrilla or punching, as it's called, a popular and effective way to fish at Welsh right now. Usually you'll hit an area that's loaded with 2 to 4 pound bass, and when you set the hook in the grass, you have a fight on your hands for sure. The ramp parking area at Welsh has been refurbished. It's now easy and safe to launch your boat. So if you want to go to a lake that's easy to learn, I suggest head out to Welsh. I love topwater fishing, and that popper type lure or walk the dog plug will get you bit a lot on this lake. Just fish around the hydrilla beds, find out what speed or action the bass prefer on any given day, and you can have a lot of fun. It's not uncommon over there to catch 2 bass on the same topwater lure. I've done that recently. Another good technique is using a weightless fluke or plastic stick bait. Slowly fish the grass lines. Some days the bass want the bait fish fairly fast. Other days they only bite when you barely move that plastic. My favorite technique on tough days, those days when there's no wind or you hit a bluebird day, is use a wacky rig worm. I like using a spinning tackle. 6-pound line for most bites will get you bit a lot better than heavy lines. Some days Welsh bass want the wacky rig in the surface. Some days you fish it on the bottom, put a little small lead in the head of the worm. Gives it a unique action to trigger a lot of bites. So here are a couple of pictures of Welsh bass caught on topwater baits this last week. Some pretty good sized fish over there, just not quite as big. Anyway, early April is a fun time to fish on most any of our upper freshwater area lakes. The bass and crappie, they've been the main species being sought after so far, but it'll soon be the catfish and striper time on area lakes. And next week, I'll be reporting on those species on Lake Fork and Tawakoni. Hope everyone's enjoying the spring weather, and enjoy the weekend and catch a big one if you get out there.
Thank you so much, Johnny. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the upper fresh hotspots. Johnny says that we're going to go look at Lake Fork, and all the species are in full spawn mode. The lake level is full, and the big fish are biting great. Bass on soft plastics and top water. The crappie best on jigs and minnows, and then the water's full pool level. Lake Walsh, the bass spawn will soon be winding down. Good topwater bite and wacky worms, and green pumpkin is going to be the best there. The water level there is full pool and clear, Brie.
You see that square bass?
Yeah, man.
That was insane. That belly on that thing. All right, stay hooked on the Texas Insider Fishing Report because the bite is on in the Alvey Reels, Middle Coast, and Lower Fresh regions, and we want you to hear about it first. Also, we want to remind you, if you want to keep up with everything fishing in Texas, make sure to visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and follow us and tag us in your pictures on Instagram. Also, if you miss a show or need a refresher on rigs and techniques again, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, Captain Rick Murphy, where you'll be able to see the show posted every Thursday amongst other fishing adventure videos. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvey Reels, a better way to fish. And Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO Offshore.
Why is Casa Vieja Lodge on everyone's bucket list?
Left teaser! Left flat as well, 2 fish! They're everywhere! Right flat teaser as well! Left flat, right flat teaser!
Come to Casa Vieja Lodge and check it off your list.
Finding a shoreline is easy. Finding a sure thing is not. For over 20 years, anglers from Kitty Hawk to California and every shore in between have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites. So just stop with the fishing and get busy with the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures, or visit fishbites.com.
Today's Power Pole tip is about the new Charge Marine Power Station. After the charge is installed in your boat, the key thing to do is to log into the Sea Monster app and let the Charge know what type of batteries you're working with. The Charge is designed to work with gel, lead acid, AGM, even lithium batteries, but the key is letting it know what you got in the boat. So for our trolling motor batteries in this Pathfinder, we've got 2 Odyssey trolling motor batteries. They're big, deep cycle batteries that last all day long. I want to go into the Sea Monster app and let it know exactly how much reserve capacity is in those batteries, and Charge is going to optimize and charge those to the fullest. But for our cranking battery, we've got a different chemistry. It's a lead acid. We will do the drop down and let the Charge know we're working with the lead acid battery on the cranking side, how much reserve capacity is in that, and the Charge is going to optimize a different battery type for your outboard. For more information, go to powerpole.com, and that's your tip of the week.
All right, well, spring has sprung from Freeport to Rockport and everywhere in between, so let's have our Captain Bink Grimes tell us what this means for our fishing days ahead. Hey, Bink.
How y'all doing? Big spring tides are giving us all kinds of options. That's a good thing, since you need every option in your back pocket this time of year, with the wind blowing your hat off one day and then going to nuts the next. At Rockport, guide Brett Price said those trout are good over shell and live shrimp under a popping cork. And the waders along the shorelines, they're finding a good bite on topwaters and those Mirror double Ds and Corky Fat Boy floaters. The edges of their coastal are good from Matagorda to Rockport on shrimp and bass assassins. Guys are taking their trolling motor, they're going right down there on the ledge and throwing that 2 to 5 foot of water where it's dropping off, and those fish are sitting right there with it. Then the strong incoming tides are pushing good crops of glass minnows and mullets to shoalgrass shorelines in Matagorda, Port O'Connor. In Matagorda, Greensbow and Middle Grounds are holding trout potholes on Bass Assassins and Mirror Little John. Morning has been good on that incoming tide, and afternoon has been just as good. And Port O'Connor limits the trout in 18 to 22 class to come on Bass Assassins and Top Dogs. Guide Lynn Smith said most of those fish are on sand and grass, but the better fish are on the shell. Drifting continues to reduce over scattered shells. Great catches have come from East Matagorda Bay on live shrimp under a mid-coast cork. Watch your lunar phases because those trout are feeding during the prime time, and they're shutting it off until the moon falls. The afternoon bite's been just as strong or better lately, with the evening tides pushing those shads from intercoastal all the way to those mud flats, and those fish are just getting right behind them and following them. Drifters have been getting trout on the reefs and bass dropping Christmas Bay there around Freeport, mostly on live shrimp, and those back lakes in Port O'Connor and the reefs in San Antonio Bay are produced on plastics and glow Mirror Little Johns. The photo there, that was afternoon drifting in East Matagorda Bay. That's my daughter Mallory. She was all smiles. We went out and hit a limit of trout on the first drift. We'll go to redfish. There's a lot of bull redfish cruising the beachfront from Freeport to Port O'Connor. Most have been using crabs, mullets, squid, and sardines. If they're on the beach or also on the jetties, the Surfside Matagorda jetties are accessible by foot, but you have to have a boat to get there by the Port O'Connor jetty, and there's just a lot of redfish at the Port O'Connor jetty right now. In Matagorda, those back lakes are mostly mud and shell and tough to wade, so we're working the edges and points where the reefs jut out into the lake. Their guide, Keith Phillips, he's been posting up with mullet and catching good numbers over shell, including several over 28 inches that they've released lately. There's good redfish on the flats and on the Estes flats there in Rockport while drifting with soft plastics under a popping cork. And then those anchoring with cut mullet are finding redfish on the edges of the flats as well. And once again, those back lakes in Port O'Connor are players right now for redfish with the high tides. Mostly sand and grass in Port O'Connor, so you can either drift. Places like Pringle, Conti, Shoalwater, and Panther Lake, they've all been reliable. We'll go to sheephead. Sheephead bite's been good. It's this time of year. They're good at the jetty. A live shrimp against the rocks have been best. They're really there all the time. Surfside, Matagorda, Port O'Connor, jetties. The reefs on the north shoreline of West Matagorda Bay are holding them as well. Places like Twin Island, Matt Island, and Shell Island. Sheepheads, they're being found in diversion along the submerged timber because all that timber's been underwater for so long. It's got oyster shell growing on it in those sheephead like to pick at those oyster shells and get the mussels and everything out of them. They're a big sheephead on the Half Moon Reef near Palacios. That 54-acre reef is like an underwater jetty, so they're there. They're picking off, and they've got harvestable oysters on that reef restoration project. Just a good place to fish. Go offshore, dolphin or mahi-mahi, whatever you want to call them. They're showing on the floating grass. Water temps are beginning to climb in the upper 70s, and that should bring more pelagics closer to the beach. All that grass is holding lots of dolphin and triple tail as well. Bull reds are really good in the surf, as well as at the jetties. We talked about lots of bulls are off the beachfront, best on sardines and squid. Guide Mike in Quebec has said that there's lots of snapper, and they're pretty thick and safe waters, up to 15 pounds. He's working about 25 to 40 foot of water. So we're enjoying our time down here. It's getting warmer, and man, the fishing has been really, really good.
That was a great report, Bink, from the Alvey region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Rodin marine hotspots from the Middle Coast. He says inshore in Rockport, the waders are working the sand and the grass and are finding solid trout on corkies and sheep pups on the incoming tide. And then redfish and Matagorda are good all over the shell on live shrimp and mullets fished along the north shoreline. Brie?
All right, well, in the Meadow Fresh region, big fish and lots of them are being caught and are waiting to be caught by you on Lake Falcon, Fayette County, Lake Travis, Buchanan, Decker, and Choke Canyon. So let's have a chat with our guide, Matt Reed, to see how we can get it done.
Get her done.
See how you can get it done? Yeah, there's a lot of largemouth biting right now, and I'm going to do my best to cover as many lakes as I can in this South Texas region. So, going to kick it off with my baby at Falcon right now. Falcon Lake is dishing out a bunch of fish. The shad spawn is in full swing on the main lake points in 3 foot of water or less. When those shad are up there spawning, the bass congregate on them big time to feed back up, after the spawn. So a square bill crankbait will get the job done there. Chartreuse patterns are your best keys. Even though they're feeding on shad, you want to have something that actually looks a little different, because the shad are so thick. Later on in the day, I'm moving out on the flat gravel points, or some of the points with some bigger rock, as long as they're flatter ones. I'm throwing a Carolina rig fluke or a Magnum trick worm in that 5 to 12 foot range. Catching a ton of fish later in the day that way, and a lot of them are 2 to 4 pounders, and you're going to get that occasional big one mixed in, that 7, 8, 9 pound fish that we love to target down here. Moving on up to Fayette County, there's been a real steady deep bite starting to develop. It's a power plant lake, so it's already, has a real hot water influence. So look for the humps on the south end of the lake, and at 10 to 15 feet of water. With deep water close by, the fish are tight to the bottom and the bite's soft. They're not real aggressive right now. So if you feel any pressure on that Carolina rig or Texas rig, go ahead and set the hook, because it'll probably be one you just didn't feel him pick it up. Darker colors have been best, the June bug, green pumpkin, and black. That's been the best choices right now. Somerville bass, they're just wrapping the spawn up, beginning to feed up after all that spawning activity. You're finding them right now on the first area of shallow water coming out of the pockets, and the brush piles on the mouth of the, in the points in that 8 to 10 foot of water coming out of the spawning bays. Black and red bugs have been the best colors on your plastics, and throw them on a Carolina rig or a shaky head rig. That's the way they've been biting the best in those brush piles. Moving over to the Austin area, Brian Cotter with Texas Hogs has sent me a report for several lakes there. Lake Buchanan is heating up. You need to flip the trees with soft plastics such as crawl worms and stick baits and other creature style baits. That's the way you're getting the most bites. You can catch a big one on a jig flipping those trees. Crankbaits and spinner baits will get you bit as well. Lake Travis is coming out of the spawn, and those fish are really starting to group up and feed. They're beginning to school a little bit, which they do there every year because it's a clear lake. They come out and they group up on the shad, and you really can catch them well on a topwater bait. with a walk the dog type action. And some of the biggest fish that are being caught are on a shad color square bill in about 4 feet of water. Lake Decker has been pretty good for some nice fish as well. Catching them on soft plastics around and back in the reeds all around the lake. In the back of the pockets, there's a very few still spawning, but a lot of them are still hanging around that shallow water. So, you know, target those reeds in the back of the pockets, you still get a lot of bites. The discharge has just started up, so the fish in there are starting to bite as well. Be patient. You need to wait for the schooling activity in that moving water in the discharge. Use a small swim bait or a fluke style bait. Even a small jerk bait will get you bit on those schooling fish. Spike Baits sent me a report from Choke Canyon. There's a very few fish still on the bed. The main two patterns are the inside grass line with a moving bait like a spinner bait or a swim bait or a frog, or either on the outside of the hydrilla line with a Texas rig, soft plastics, and natural colors, you know, the watermelon reds, green pumpkins, that type of thing. You can also throw a crankbait along that outside grass line to catch a few. Got a picture there of one of Brian Cotter's customers. That little kid caught him an 8-pounder the other day, and he's just all smile.
Oh, I can see why. Tell me about the crappie, Bubba.
All right, Falcon Lake crappie are done with the spawn or grouped back up in the brush piles in that 12 to 18 foot range. Catching them on 8-ounce jigs really well right now, and there's a ton of 1.5-pound, 2-pounders mixed in your limit.
All right,
That's
Matt.
just a picture of one of my guys the other day with one of those lovely 2-pound slabs.
I love it. Okay, bud,
Pretty
thanks for all the
picture.
great pictures. We appreciate you, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region, right, Brie?
Let's do it.
Let's see what Matt says that we should go do this weekend. He says Falcon Lake, the bass are biting very well, and the shad spawn is going strong on every shallow point early in the morning. Square bill crankbaits will load them up, and then after that, try a Carolina rig soft plastic on a flat gravel point. That's going to probably work real well too.
All right, we've got one more captain in the Fish Bites Upper Coast region ready to give his report, and someone else who is ready to give us a new product report is Ova Yanda at the workbench with some fun new products to feast your eyes on.
Feast your eyes on this pretty thing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a flying fish. It's a sea vixen.
Ooh, a sea vixen.
That's like Brie.
Oh,
a
wow.
Sea vixen.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Let's go.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a MirrOlure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. And Startron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO, Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
The only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvi reels are manufactured using the most reliable components. Alvi's state-of-the-art drag and retrieve rates are perfect for any fishing challenge. So whether it's a side cast or spinning reel, Alvi makes a reel that best fits your needs. Alvi reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvi also comes with up to a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvius.com.
You know, I gotta admit that being over here talking about new products is one of my favorite because it's like Christmas every week.
Exactly.
We got all this cool stuff people send to us to promote.
Well, we're gonna start off right there with the rig ring.
The rig ring.
Yeah, and this is, you know, everybody has a bucket on their boat, you know, especially if you're going offshore, you know, everybody's got a bucket. And this thing, actually, you can bend these tabs here and fit that down inside of a bucket and put all your stuff in there, your lures. It's got a little place for your knives, a little place for your pliers, and you can hang lures and all these little holes there so that they're, and it's lower in the bucket. So, you know, when you hang the stuff on the outside of the bucket, I always hang them on the outside lip. And every time I walk by there, man, they reach out and grab my shorts or something.
Well, plus you can put a lid on this.
You can actually still keep a lid on there, yeah. And keep everything from falling out. So, and it's made out of stainless steel, 3/16 stainless steel. It's 16 gauge, and it's pretty sturdy little doodad.
It's pretty thick.
Yeah,
I
and
can
it's
tell
made
you
by
I'm holding this.
TopShelfMarine.com. You can go get you one of those.
Good job, guys, at Top Shelf.
Yeah, and you can put it up and down in that bucket, however deep you want. As a matter of fact. Next, we have Chase baits. This is called the Rip Snorter. I love the way these Aussie guys, you know, name their baits and stuff. This is called the Rip Snorter, and it's the world's first true vibe bait that's weedless. You know, that hook, you know, it pulls from the top just like a rattle trap, and it'll dig and vibrate. It's got a little blade on the bottom. You can replace that blade with just a treble hook. You can take it off if you don't like it. You don't have to have it on there, but it also comes with a custom snap hook that you can actually change out the hook. It fits on a little thing inside there. It's shaped really like that, so that it'll go around that little doodad inside, and you can change that hook out real easy if you want. You can put a smaller hook on there.
And I assume with the eye to be tied, it swims.
It
like
vibrates.
This.
It's a vibe. You know, and it vibrates just like a rattle trap or something like that.
Nice.
And,
well,
you know, they have places where they catch snook and finger marks and all kinds of really cool little snappers in the estuaries.
A lot of different colors.
Yeah, and there's 9 different colors and 2 different sizes, you know, 2.5 and 3.5 inch. They're perfect for trout, redfish, snook, whatever you want to catch, man.
Yeah, man.
That thing will eat them.
All right.
All right, next we got the sea Vixen flying fish.
Named after Brie, of course.
Very pretty. These,
wow. Look at this.
Everything eats a flying fish, and these are very nice. You know, they got the big, the fake wings there. It's all UV treated, the skirt and the head. They come in 2 head size. This is the cup-faced head. It'll pop like every 5 seconds. They also have a dome, you know, like a rounded head version right there, and it'll probably pop every 3 seconds or so, depending on where you put it on the riggers.
This looks like a little squid.
It's awesome. They got big eyes up in the front, just like a flying fish does, and you could put a ballyhoo behind that if you wanted to, or I would just put a hook as far back as it'll go in there and just run it with just by itself.
Why complicate things?
Exactly. It's another thing to get in the way of the hookup, in my opinion.
Sometimes bigger is not better.
Exactly. Sea Vixen tackle. I live by that. Anyway, Startron. Ring clean. I'm the only one who thought that was funny. It's Startron ring clean enzyme formula and motor treatment. It's ring clean plus actually, and it's called plus because they put enzymes in there as well. And it really works on all gas engines. It prevents carbon buildup and gumming of your rings and pistons and every combustion chamber. Keeps all the carburetors clean. You know, 1 ounce will treat 10 gallons. So that little bottle there will treat 160 gallons of fuel. You know, that's probably 2 ounces for a regular truck.
Yeah,
you
keep
put
all
it
your deposits.
once every 5 fill-ups. You know, you can put it in there as often as you want, but you know they recommend once every 4 or 5 fill-ups, and you'll be good.
I like it.
Yeah, that stuff is.
Where do we go
powerful.
to get this? Startron.com.
Startron.com.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Star, Bree, we got to go to another region.
I have to say that sea vixen really is impressive.
They're pretty, aren't they?
I hope I
They
get
have a whole
one
lot
to
of
take
stuff.
home.
I'm going to have you showing some more stuff.
What's with you, man? You be wanting to take everything home.
Well, everything's just so good looking over there. I just want to catch some fish. What's wrong with that?
Well, because Daddy wants them.
Oh, well, there's two. All right, we don't call Captain Carl Weston's waters the Fish Bites Upper Coast region for nothing. So, Carl, let's hear what we're catching inshore and offshore and where they're biting.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Let's go with flounder today. We've been seeing some pretty good reports coming in here. The water temp is staying in the mid-60s, and the flounder bite's becoming more consistent this week. Reports of many nice-sized fish being caught in the coves, around the flat next to the dock pylons. We got, I recommend right now working like a 4-inch Bass Assassin sea shad and a glow chartreuse or white. Fill the freezer with these great tasting fish. The silver mullet color has been hot also, and I would rig these up on an 1/8-ounce jig head for the best results. Little side note with the coloring of the water right now in this area, these colors have been putting some great flounder as, and live bait as well. We've been using some small finger mullet for shrimp, and we've got a picture here of Ryan with a nice stringer of flounder.
Nice. That boy's a catching fool, isn't he?
He is a fisherman for sure, boss.
Dude, when I took him to Guatemala, he wrecked them, boy. He's really good. All right, let's talk a little bit about some redfish.
Okay, moving on to the redfish. I'm excited to report the redfish bite is heating up in Galveston Bay big time. The water temp is rising and the fish are becoming more active in the shallows and in the shell flats. The bait fish are also becoming a little more abundant and active in these areas. A lot of our fishermen are just parking their boats, getting out and wade fishing. These guys are coming back with some nice full stringers, proving these areas are producing great fish. I've had good luck throwing a Mirror Mirrodine in the broken glass color. Live croaker is also working good on a popping cork. Now, once you locate the fish won't be, locate the bait, the fish won't be far behind them. Look for the ripples on top of the water and try to ease up on these schools of fish. These fish spook very easy, so try and be quiet as possible in any attempt to land one of them also in the boat. And try to position yourself down current for the schools and let them work your way, if they can. And today we got a picture of Cameron with a nice redfish he caught while wade fishing.
Nice, nice. All right, let's go offshore there, Carl.
All right, going offshore. I think you got a little of this action last year, grouper. This is a great time of year. Deep drop for grouper. We've been blessed with some really nice weather days here recently, and when this happens, we head out to our favorite spot and drop for some of these deep water monsters. Always make sure you pack some good heavy gear and tackle for these trips. A grouper is a very strong fish, and when they strike, you'll need to be able to turn them quickly. These fish get back in the underwater structure, as in rocks, rig legs, wrecks. They will break you off fast. I personally rig my rods like, no smaller than a 30-wide reel. Keep it spooled with Momoy Diamond 80-pound test, and I tie that to a 200-pound test mono leader. Finished off my rig with an eagle claw. I use a circle 18-aught hook. When I'm going for a smaller grouper such as yellow edge, I'll downsize to a 12-aught hook. But let us never forget bigger baits being bigger fish. So I believe we got a picture today of Mr. Daniel with a nice Warsaw.
That is a nice one. Holy moly.
Wow.
Boy, Daniel looks like he's struggling to pull that one up there, big dog.
It's going to take some muscle.
All right, well, you got one more to go. What you got for us?
We got kingfish. And, the springtime around here brings us some large kingfish around the upper coast of Texas. With that being said, fishing some of these large underwater structures we have, like rock piles, oil platform, and wreck, will produce some nice, exciting action for you. Slow trolling a live bait on the surface can trigger these fish to blow up on top water and even sky on a bait, which is an amazing sight to see, which I know you've seen before. Remember, as always, use a wire leader when on the hunt for these fish. A kingfish is one of the hardest and fastest hitting fish out there, so wire is a must. They also make for a fun fish to fight on light tackle. Just make sure it's not too light, or you'll be re-spooling your reel, and we know that's not a lot of fun. And I think you know this gentleman too, Mr. Big Nick with a kingfish here, smiling for the camera.
Oh yeah, man.
See it.
There he is, Big Nick. Golly, I'm gonna tell you, Carl, when I took those boys down to Guatemala, they wanted to catch everything, wanted to take a picture with everything. Some of the pictures were in the water with the sailfish. Some of the pictures were, you know, in the boat. Golly, I mean, these boys love documenting all their pictures. I got one real quick question for you. How's the sword fishing been?
Sword fishing has been pretty consistent all winter. We haven't got out a lot due to the weather, but quickly, as you know, as we get our windows, it'll pick up because we'll be there.
All right, bud, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Upper Coast region. We appreciate it. Inshore, flounder around the docks and pylons is the place. Throw a 4-inch bass assassin sea shads and light colored glow chartreuse, white with an 1/8 ounce jig head. And then offshore, grouper in the deep structure using heavy tackle. Dress your rod up with a Seeker rig with 2 pounds of weight and 200-pound leader test, in addition to an Eagle Claw 18-0 circle hook. What do you think about that, Brie?
What's wrong with taking lots of pictures about your catch?
I like it, man, but those boys got to have that proof, man. It was like they want to come home and show all the boys.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We hope you catch a big one this weekend, and we will see you next week.
Send us your pictures so you can prove it to us, baby.